Long ago, in a quiet valley where the wind spoke gently through the trees and the rivers carried the sound of peace, there lived a tradition known only to a few seekers of truth. It was not a ritual of noise, nor a practice of force. It was the discipline of inner stillness before sleep, a sacred alignment of thought, breath, and intention. It is said that the night is not empty. It is alive with unseen currents. While the world sleeps, the deeper layers of existence listen more clearly than during the noise of the day. And in that silence, whatever the heart repeatedly feels begins to take form. This ancient sleep prayer was never about begging. It was never about chasing. It was about becoming a vessel that no longer resists abundance. Before sleep, the practitioner would sit quietly. The spine straight, the breath slow, the mind gently released from the weight of the day. No anger was carried into the night. No worry was allowed to remain unspoken. Every thought of lack was acknowledged and then released like dry leaves falling from a branch. Then the prayer would begin, not as words spoken loudly, but as a deep inner knowing. May I be aligned with abundance. May my actions be guided by wisdom. May what I need come in harmony with my path. May fear of lack dissolve within me. This was not a chant to force wealth into existence. It was a recalibration of the inner world. For it is said that wealth does not first appear in the hands, it begins in the mind that no longer lives in scarcity. The ancient teachers understood something simple yet powerful. The sleeping mind is fertile soil. Whatever seed is placed in it before rest grows quietly through the night. If fear is planted, fear grows. If peace is planted, peace expands. And if clarity of abundance is planted, opportunities begin to appear in ways the waking mind could not predict. So the practitioner would visualize not just money, but flow, not just possession, but movement. Coins were not imagined as heavy objects, but as energy passing through life with ease. Doors opening, help arriving at the right time, ideas forming effortlessly, work becoming meaningful and rewarding. Then came the most important part, gratitude. Even before wealth arrived, gratitude was felt as if it had already been received. The heart would say silently, I am thankful for what I have. I am thankful for what I cannot yet see. This feeling changed everything because gratitude is the language of acceptance, and what is accepted no longer resists entering one's life. After this, the practitioner would lie down, not in desire, but in surrender. The body would relax completely, as if releasing all control. The mind would be allowed to drift into sleep without chasing thoughts of tomorrow. It is believed that in this state between waking and sleep, the deeper consciousness begins to work without interference. Solutions appear. Opportunities align. Unexpected help finds its way. Not because magic has been forced, but because resistance has been removed. But the ancient teaching always included one warning. No prayer for wealth is complete if the heart remains filled with greed or fear. For greed tightens the flow and fear blocks it entirely. The sleep prayer only works when the seeker is calm within, trusting that life is already moving in the right direction. So each night the practitioner would cleanse the mind before sleep, not just of thoughts but of emotional weight. Forgiveness was silently given to others. And more importantly, forgiveness was given to oneself for mistakes made during the day. In this state, sleep became not just rest but a sacred workshop where the invisible patterns of life were gently reshaped. Over time, something subtle would happen. The seeker would wake up with clearer thinking. Decisions would feel lighter. Small opportunities would begin to appear. Money would not arrive as a sudden storm, but as a steady flow through work, through timing, through unexpected doors opening at the right moment. And those who practiced this discipline understood a deeper truth. The prayer was never about money alone. It was about becoming someone who is ready to receive without fear, without resistance, and without inner chaos. For wealth does not stay where it is feared, and it does not grow where it is constantly chased in panic. It flows naturally where there is balance, gratitude, and calm intention. So tonight, as the world grows quiet and your body prepares for rest, remember this ancient wisdom. Do not carry the weight of the day into your sleep. Do not let worry be the last companion of your mind. Instead, enter the silence with peace. Speak inwardly with trust. Feel abundance not as something distant, but as something already unfolding. And as sleep takes you gently away, know this, the night does not ignore your thoughts. It listens, and what it hears in stillness, it begins to shape in silence. Sleep is a powerful mental state. The speech highlights that the mind becomes highly receptive before sleep, making it a key time to set positive intentions about abundance and life direction. Sleep is not merely a pause from life. It is a transition into a deeper level of awareness where the conscious mind loosens its grip and the hidden layers of thought become more active. In the final moments before sleep, the mind is neither fully awake nor fully unconscious. It is in a delicate bridge state where impressions settle more deeply than at any other time of the day. In this ancient understanding, this moment is considered sacred because whatever is held in thought at this threshold begins to shape the inner direction of a person's life. Throughout the day, the mind is crowded with noise, responsibilities, worries, conversations, desires, and memories all compete for attention. In such a state, clarity becomes weak and intention often gets scattered. But as night arrives and external activity fades, the mind slowly begins to quiet down. This quietness is not empty, it is receptive. Like still water reflecting the moon, the mind at rest begins to reflect the deepest and most repeated thoughts held within it. This is why the moments before sleep are considered more powerful than long hours of effort during confusion. When the body lies down and the senses withdraw from the outer world, attention naturally turns inward. In this inward movement, suggestion becomes stronger and imagination becomes more vivid. What is thought repeatedly in this state does not remain as mere imagination, it begins to imprint itself on the subconscious layer of awareness. The subconscious mind does not argue, reject, or analyze. It simply accepts what is given to it with emotional intensity and repetition. So when a person enters sleep while holding thoughts of fear, lack, or struggle, those impressions quietly continue to grow beneath awareness. But when the same threshold is used to hold thoughts of peace, stability, and abundance, a different pattern begins to form. Over time, this pattern influences behavior, perception, and the ability to notice opportunities that were always present but previously overlooked. This is why sleep is described as a natural gateway to transformation. It is not the hours of sleep alone that matter, but the state in which sleep is entered. A restless mind carries confusion into the subconscious, while a calm and centered mind plants seeds of clarity. In this way, sleep becomes a silent teacher, shaping the inner world without force or resistance. There is also a subtle truth hidden in this process. The mind that is deeply relaxed becomes more aligned with intuition. In daily activity, intuition is often drowned by overthinking. But before sleep, when thinking slows down, intuitive understanding becomes clearer. Solutions to problems may arise naturally, not through effort, but through quiet realization. This is why many insights and breakthroughs are often experienced during or after deep rest. Over time, those who respect this state begin to notice a shift in their life patterns. Their decisions become more stable, their emotions become less reactive. Their perception of scarcity weakens, replaced by a quieter confidence that life is not as limited as it once appeared. This inner shift gradually reflects outwardly, influencing work, relationships, and the flow of opportunities. Thus, sleep is not an ending of awareness, but a deepening of it. And the final thoughts carried into this state are like seeds placed into fertile soil. They do not show immediate results, but they grow silently, shaping the direction of tomorrow from the silence of today. Abundance begins in the mind. Wealth is presented not as something external first, but as a mindset shift from scarcity, fear, and worry to calmness, clarity, and inner trust. When this understanding is carried deeper, it becomes clear that sleep is not only a personal experience, but also a continuous conversation between the inner world and the outer reality. What a person repeatedly feels and believes before sleep does not remain locked inside the mind, it begins to influence perception. And perception quietly shapes decisions, actions, and reactions the following day. In this way, the unseen inner state slowly becomes visible in the events of life. A mind filled with tension before sleep rarely experiences true rest. Even if the body lies still for hours, the inner movement of worry continues. This is why some people wake up tired even after long sleep. It is not the body that failed to rest, but the mind that never truly softened. When thoughts remain scattered at night, the subconscious carries that fragmentation forward, creating a sense of heaviness in the morning. Over time, this pattern affects motivation, clarity, and even the ability to recognize opportunities that require a calm and alert mind. But when the final moments of the day are used wisely, something different unfolds. As external stimulation fades, the mind becomes more impressionable. In this state, gentle focus on stability, gratitude, and abundance does not act as wishful thinking, but as mental conditioning. The subconscious begins to accept these impressions as familiar truths. And what is familiar becomes natural in behavior. This is where transformation begins quietly. A person who consistently enters sleep with thoughts of abundance starts to notice subtle shifts in daily awareness. Instead of focusing only on what is missing, attention gradually shifts toward what is possible. Instead of reacting with fear when challenges appear, there is a growing sense of patience. This does not happen suddenly, but through repeated nightly alignment of thought and emotion. It is also important to understand that abundance is not limited to money alone. It includes clarity of thought, emotional balance, and the ability to respond wisely to life situations. When the mind is trained before sleep to release fear and embrace calm trust, it strengthens all areas of life. Financial improvement, when it comes, is often a reflection of this internal order rather than a separate event. Another subtle change occurs in decision-making. A mind that is calm before sleep tends to process information more clearly over time. Solutions that once felt complex begin to appear simpler. Instead of being overwhelmed by problems, the mind learns to observe them without panic. This shift allows better choices, and better choices naturally lead to improved outcomes. In this way, inner discipline during sleep preparation becomes a foundation for outer progress. There is also a deeper layer to this practice: acceptance. When a person lies down at night while mentally releasing the need to control everything, A quiet acceptance begins to form. This does not mean giving up ambition, but rather removing inner resistance. And when resistance decreases, mental energy that was once spent on worry becomes available for creativity and awareness. Over time, this creates a subtle but powerful transformation. Life begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a flow. Challenges still exist, but the inner response to them changes. Instead of tightening against life, the mind learns to move with it. This alignment is what gradually opens doors that once felt closed. In this way, sleep becomes more than rest. It becomes a nightly training of the mind where thoughts are gently reshaped, emotions are softened, and inner patterns are realigned. And through this quiet repetition, a person slowly becomes someone who is not driven by fear of lack, but guided by a steady sense of inner sufficiency and trust in life's unfolding path. Importance of releasing negativity. Before sleeping, letting go of stress, anger, fear, and negative thoughts is essential to create space for peaceful and productive subconscious growth. When this inner transformation deepens further, it begins to influence not only the mental state but also the rhythm of daily life itself. A person who consistently enters sleep with calm awareness and a sense of inner abundance gradually develops a different relationship with time, effort, and expectation. Life no longer feels like a constant race to secure something missing. Instead, it starts to feel like a gradual unfolding where each day carries its own purpose and timing. One of the most noticeable changes is in the way stress is experienced. Problems that once created intense emotional reactions begin to lose some of their weight. This does not mean that challenges disappear, but the internal response to them becomes more balanced. The mind starts to recognize that not every difficulty requires immediate emotional struggle. Some situations resolve naturally when met with patience and clear observation. This shift in perception is quietly rooted in the repeated practice of releasing tension before sleep, where the mind learns that letting go is safe. As this habit strengthens, sleep itself becomes deeper and more restorative. The body rests more fully because the mind is not carrying unresolved emotional burden into the night. This improved rest has a direct effect on energy levels during the day. With more stable energy, focus becomes sharper, and tasks that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. Productivity increases not through pressure but through clarity. This is an important distinction because it shows that inner calm can produce outer efficiency without forcing the mind into stress. At the same time, intuition becomes more active. In a quiet and balanced mental state, subtle inner signals are easier to recognize. These signals are not loud or dramatic. They appear as gentle insights, timely ideas, or sudden clarity about a situation. A person who is constantly anxious may ignore or miss these subtle impressions. But a mind trained to rest in calm awareness before sleep becomes more sensitive to them. Over time, this intuitive awareness can guide decisions in a way that reduces unnecessary mistakes and increases alignment with better opportunities. Another important development is the change in emotional attachment to outcomes. Instead of becoming overly anxious about immediate results, there is a growing understanding that outcomes often unfold in their own timing. This does not reduce ambition, but it removes desperation. And when desperation decreases, the mind becomes more stable in action. Actions taken from stability tend to be more thoughtful, consistent, and effective than actions driven by fear or urgency. In financial terms, this shift often manifests as improved stability rather than sudden change. Opportunities may begin to appear more clearly, not necessarily because the external world has changed overnight, but because perception has become clearer. A mind free from constant fear is better able to recognize possibilities that were always present, but previously overlooked. In this way, inner calm acts like a lens that brings hidden opportunities into focus. Relationships also begin to reflect this inner change. When emotional reactivity decreases, communication becomes softer and more understanding. Misunderstandings are less likely to escalate and patience becomes more natural. This creates a more harmonious environment, which in turn supports mental peace. Thus, the cycle of calmness strengthens itself through both inner practice and outer experience. Ultimately, this entire process shows that the preparation for sleep is not a small or insignificant habit. It is a repeated moment of mental conditioning that shapes the deeper layers of consciousness. Over time, it influences how a person thinks, feels, and responds to life. And as these patterns stabilize, life begins to feel less chaotic and more aligned, as if the inner world and outer reality are slowly learning to move in harmony with each other. Gratitude as a magnet for flow. Feeling gratitude for both present and future blessings is described as a powerful force that aligns a person with opportunities and steady financial flow. When this journey reaches a more mature stage, the changes become even more subtle, yet more profound. The mind no longer depends on constant effort to maintain calmness before sleep. Instead, it naturally begins to settle as the day ends. This shift does not happen through force, but through repetition and inner familiarity. The habit of releasing tension, setting peaceful thoughts, and entering sleep with a sense of trust gradually becomes part of one's identity. At this level, the relationship with money also begins to transform in a deeper way. Instead of viewing money as something distant or uncertain, the mind starts to perceive it as a natural flow connected to effort, value, and timing. Fear of lack weakens significantly. This does not mean that financial responsibility disappears, but the emotional burden attached to it reduces. The mind becomes more practical and less emotionally reactive when dealing with financial matters. This inner stability allows better judgment. Decisions related to work, investment, or daily expenses become less influenced by panic or pressure. A calm mind is able to evaluate situations more clearly, notice details more effectively, and avoid impulsive actions. Over time, this leads to more consistent financial outcomes, not because of sudden luck, but because of improved mental clarity guiding better choices. Sleep itself becomes a place of restoration on multiple levels. Physically, the body recovers more efficiently. Mentally, the constant noise of overthinking begins to fade. Emotionally, unresolved stress is processed more gently. This creates a cycle where each night clears space for a more focused and balanced next day. Life begins to feel less heavy because the mind is no longer carrying unnecessary emotional weight from one day to the next. As awareness deepens, gratitude becomes less of a practice and more of a natural state. Instead of forcing thankful thoughts, the mind begins to automatically recognize value in small moments. This shift is important because it changes the baseline of perception. A person who sees value in what already exists is less likely to feel constantly deprived, and when deprivation decreases, inattention also reduces. With this reduction in tension, creativity begins to rise. A relaxed mind has more space for ideas, solutions, and innovation. Problems that once felt rigid start to appear more flexible. This flexibility allows new approaches to emerge. In many cases, opportunities are not newly created but newly recognized. The change in perception reveals paths that were always present but previously unnoticed due to mental noise. There is also a quiet strengthening of self-trust. When a person repeatedly experiences that calm thinking leads to better outcomes, confidence grows naturally. This confidence is not loud or arrogant, it is steady and grounded. It comes from experience rather than assumption. Such confidence further stabilizes decision-making and reduces hesitation in important moments. Over time, life begins to feel more synchronized. Events seem less random and more interconnected. This does not mean everything becomes predictable, but the mind becomes better at understanding timing and flow. Instead of resisting life's pace, there is a growing ability to move with it. This alignment reduces unnecessary struggle and conserves mental energy. Even during challenges, there is a noticeable difference in response. Difficult situations no longer create immediate emotional collapse. Instead, there is space to observe, understand, and respond thoughtfully. This space between event and reaction becomes one of the most valuable inner strengths. It allows wisdom to emerge instead of impulsive reaction. In the end, this entire process reveals a simple but powerful truth. The way a person ends the day shapes the beginning of the next. And when nights are consistently filled with calm awareness, release of fear, and gentle trust in life, the overall direction of life begins to shift quietly but steadily toward balance, clarity, and inner sufficiency. Surrender and trust in life's process. True transformation comes when a person stops chasing wealth with anxiety and instead sleeps with trust, allowing inner alignment to attract natural opportunities over time. At its deepest level, this practice reveals that transformation is never a sudden event, but a continuous refinement of inner patterns that unfold quietly over time. When a person consistently prepares the mind before sleep with calm intention, they are able to relax and recharge their mind and body, leading to improved mental clarity and a sense of well-being. The changes eventually move beyond conscious effort and settle into the subconscious structure itself. At this stage, the practice is no longer something done, but something lived. The mind begins to default towards stability rather than anxiety. Even when stressful situations arise during the day, the inner foundation does not shake as easily as before. This stability is not the absence of challenges, but the presence of an internal center that remains steady regardless of external conditions. In earlier stages, calmness had to be practiced deliberately before sleep. Now, it begins to appear naturally throughout the day, as if the mind has learned a new way of existing. One of the most important outcomes of this deep shift is the reduction of inner resistance. Resistance is the silent force that often creates struggle in life. It appears as overthinking, fear of failure, doubt about decisions, and emotional tension toward uncertainty. When resistance is strong, even simple tasks feel heavy. But when resistance weakens through consistent inner calming practices, life begins to feel more fluid. Actions require less emotional force and decisions become more natural. In this state, money and material stability are no longer seen as distant or separate forces. Instead, they are understood as outcomes that emerge from alignment between thought, action, and timing. This perspective removes desperation. And when desperation fades, the mind becomes far more effective in engaging with real opportunities. Work is no longer driven by fear of lack, but by clarity of purpose. This shift alone can significantly change the quality of effort a person brings into their daily life. Another profound change is the evolution of attention. The mind becomes less scattered and more anchored. Instead of constantly jumping between worries, memories, and imagined problems, attention begins to settle more easily on what is present. This presence enhances awareness of small but important details in life and work. Many opportunities in life are subtle and easily missed by a distracted mind. A calm and focused awareness allows these opportunities to be seen more clearly. As this awareness deepens, emotional reactions also become more measured. Situations that once triggered frustration or impatience no longer dominate the mind as strongly. There is a growing ability to pause internally before responding. This pause creates space for better choices. In many cases, this simple inner space prevents unnecessary mistakes that would otherwise have long-term consequences. Sleep continues to play a central role in this entire transformation. Each night becomes a reset point where accumulated tension is released and mental patterns are gently reorganized. Over time, this nightly reset becomes so effective that the mind begins to maintain a more balanced state even without conscious effort. The boundary between practice and natural state gradually disappears. Gratitude also matures into something deeper than thought. It becomes an underlying tone of perception. Instead of occasionally feeling thankful, the mind begins to interpret life through appreciation by default. This does not ignore difficulties, but it prevents them from becoming overwhelming. Even in challenging moments, there is a subtle awareness that life still contains movement, possibility, and continuation. Eventually, this internal shift reflects outwardly in very practical ways. Relationships become smoother because communication carries less tension. Work becomes more efficient because focus is stronger and distractions are fewer. Financial patterns stabilize not through sudden change, but through consistent alignment of behavior and awareness. In the final understanding, the practice of preparing the mind before sleep reveals something fundamental. Life is shaped less by isolated actions and more by repeated states of consciousness. When the inner state becomes steady, calm, and receptive night after night, the outer life slowly begins to reflect that same steadiness. And in this quiet reflection, a person discovers that true abundance is not something chased in urgency, but something cultivated in silence, stability, and inner balance.